uh, I've seen torture. I've reported on torture, and I'm going to walk you through what that looks like from this journalist perspective. In 2012, I made, did I make 2 trips? I did make 2 trips to sub-Saharan Africa. And, you know, just keeping in mind that people like to think that the American justice system is just great, that we're somehow humane, and, the best of the best. From my experience, what I see in prisons here, and also in some of those, what many Americans would consider developing or third world countries, is not so different. But I think that this is important to understand, and I want to address it. And I'm going to talk about one of my experiences, and I'll share this with you. Because I was really, I don't have any tolerance for people that say what Richard Allen went through wasn't torture, nor do I have tolerance for professionals who should know better, blowing it off like, well, it doesn't matter, right? It matters. So perhaps, a little perspective is needed. I'm not sure, but I can't believe that I can believe we're having this conversation. I can. So let me just pull up this. I wanted to share with you a little bit of my work. And I just did this live because I just was like, fuck it, I can't. Let me share. Okay, that's me. So anyway, this is me, my little, because I realized that I'm not really, people maybe really don't know me, but I've been doing this. Hi, Sarah Boone's left kidney. I just went live because I just couldn't, I can't, with the torture talk about Richard Allen and the ongoing devaluation of what actually happened here and the rewriting of history. And it's disgusting. And I think that from my perspective as a journalist, as a trauma-informed journalist, it's problematic. And I'm not going to, and again, I'm setting aside Dateline because that's a whole other kettle of fish. But, the more I saw people talking about the hidden true crime episode, the more it's just like, I don't think these people actually know what torture is. So anyway, this is me, journalist, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so here's some of the places that I've worked for, just in case. I don't know. So, I've written for some good outlets, right? So this is at Bonafides, which honestly don't mean shit in the grand scheme of things, but establishes some of my stuff. Hi, baby kitty. Hey, my cat's here. Come here. Oh, there she is. Woo! Say good morning. Good morning, Toots. What are we talking about? We're talking about, we're talking about torture. You know how much mommy hates torture, right? Especially when it's state sponsored. Do you want to hear about it? She loves it. So anyway, this is just some stuff that I did in the last summer, just continued training because like any other profession, you need to continue to learn and grow, right? There's me. But what I wanted to talk about was this particular, where the hell is it? Article that I wrote for The Nation. Let's see. About actual prison. So it's a rough one. But I think that, I just wanted to share this again because when we have a journalist who's not a journalist, and a psychologist who, I'm not sure what the guidelines are for that, but it's deeply disturbing, and it's ahistorical. It's devoid of any sort of grounding in what the legal system is and is supposed to be. And it's certainly, they have no grasp on what not only the laws and the Constitution of the United States demand, but certainly what the Geneva Conventions and the International Court of Justice view on what torture is. And so I went to Cameroon, and I'm not going to debate anybody about LGBTQ rights, because you'll get yeeted straight away. But this was a time in sub-Saharan Africa that people were being jailed for being either gay or presumed gay or allegedly gay. And I went to visit a Cameroonian prison. This is, some of the things that I saw there were so impactful, because what I can tell you is, I think that if you drop any of the hidden true crime or whoever people into this situation, they would find it abhorrent, and they would find it reprehensible what's happening here. But yet they'll just say, hey, guess what? It's okay. No problem what's going on in Indiana, right? So I'm just going to read a little bit of this. I went with I actually went with a priest, from Northern Ireland, gay as all Paris, and he's Reverend Albert Ogle, and he was doing work on the ground, fighting back against all of this anti-gay nonsense. And again, I'm trying to see, when was this? I've been doing this for a while, so I forget. Was it 2012? I think it was. So we went in, and it was batshit crazy how many hoops we had to jump through to go get in there. And honestly, I wasn't completely clear that we were going to end up leaving. But it was in Yaoundé, Cameroon, and I was there covering this and other issues. And this is all part of the same thing. This is all part of criminalization, how we perceive and how the world perceives what is and is not torture, what is and is not, a first world versus, third world countries. And the hubris of clinical psychologists like Hidden True Crime, making statements. It was, anyway. So this is what I wrote for The Nation. This is the kind of work that I do. This is I'm not saying I do the best work. What I am saying is that I do trauma-informed work. And I felt like what they did the other night was exploitative. Anyway, okay. So when we went, so I'm just going to read some of it. So it was very hot. It was like the cement block inside the small open courtyard you pass through for visitors. We're taken through to the courtyard to the governor's office. So that's basically like the warden. The governor sits behind a hulking metal desk, and he takes our passports and our prison tickets, because we actually had to buy tickets to get into this prison, to be able to go and visit. I mean, it's all just, you just grease palms, right? You're just greasing palms to get into these places. But I got to tell you, it sounds like it was much easier to get into this Cameroonian prison in Yaoundé than it was for Richard Allen's attorneys to get into Westville when he was renditioned there. So I think that's something to point out. I don't know. Might be a problem, right? So the governor sits behind a hulking metal desk and he takes our passports, our prison tickets, and pulls out a pad of paper and starts taking down our information. Pad is brand new. It isn't some official. It was all show, right? So basically I'm going through, like, it was all show. All of this was a show for, the Americans, the priest, whatever. From a window, and this window had no glass. So from the window, I watch a man have a violent seizure. His body was jerking in the dirt. I reflexively yell out, "Doctor." The governor is unmoved, scrawling on his notepad at his desk and receiving a revolving set of guards, saluting him sharply. Slowly, people gather around the seizing man. An onlooker places a paperback book under his head for comfort. Finally, the prisoners we requested to visit, 5 men and 1 woman, are brought to the governor's office. We shake hands and introduce ourselves. I thought we would get to speak to them privately, or at least not in the governor's office, but it appears not. We have to take the space that we are given. 4 of the 6 inmates have been held from a few months to over a year without trial or official charges. They remain in prison under what officials say is suspicion of homosexuality. The other 2 have been tried and found guilty, condemned, as they put it. The man is to serve 2 years. The woman is in for 5. The burden of proof to arrest someone on suspicion of homosexuality in Cameroonian law is low. If a nosy neighbor decides a person is gay, or if they just don't like them, the neighbor can call the police, and the accused is often arrested. Policemen sit out front of clubs rumored to be gay friendly and arrest men and women as they leave. Parents may report children or siblings to each other. Not every arrest results in a prison sentence. If the accused can pay the sufficient bribe, they're sometimes set free. Often, they'll be rearrested and extorted again and again. So the burden of proof, right? When we're talking about the burden of proof is incredibly low. And take the homosexuality aspect out of it if that's bothersome to you. And if it is bothersome from you, remove yourself from my chat, because I'm not going to have any of that bullshit here. The burden is low. The state, the government of Cameroon, and the police the bar is low. Okay. I want people to think of the parallels here to, the Richard Allen trial, because I think the idea that all law enforcement is good and protecting us is bullshit. I think that the idea that somehow we are civilized here in our prisons, yet in those shithole countries, right? They aren't. They're barbaric. We are barbaric, and I think it's okay to admit that, because we have to admit it to change it. Burden of proof is low in Cameroon. The man who was found guilty was very frail, and I remember this. We bought across the street before we got in to see these folks. We bought cassava, and some water and some juices, because they don't get, if you can't afford food, you can't eat in prison there. So, I mean, oh, here come my ambulances. Everybody look out. Just on time. I know, I'm going to have to find somewhere to actually record that isn't right on the street. So the man was found guilty, was very frail, his shoulders hunched over and his chest caving in. His lightweight purple tunic looks tie-dyed at first glance, but at closer examination reveals stains and holes where the fabric has worn through. He didn't talk during our visit, except to answer questions with a oui or non. It's francophone, French-speaking Cameroon. We asked if he had any family who visited. He didn't respond. His friend, a fellow prisoner, answered his family has abandoned him. The female inmate whispered that she suffers routine abuse at the hands of prison officials. She doesn't say what kind of abuse, and I know enough not to ask. She was recently in the hospital for a severe rash on her legs. She needs medication to heal it, but she cannot afford the prescription. Healthcare isn't provided to inmates in Yaoundé. The prison doctor only dispenses aspirin tablets. If hospital stays or any other treatment requiring more than an aspirin is necessary, the prisoner has to pay for it. She has no family, she tells us. Ils sont morts. They're all dead. And she tears up. We couldn't talk openly in front of the governor and the prisoners about the details of their arrests. The governor tried to look busy writing on his little notepad, taking phone calls, but it was obvious he was listening. We learned more about the prisoners from the members of CAMFAIDS. CAMFAIDS is a non-governmental organization working for prisoners' rights, who could talk outside the governor's earshot. One prisoner was arrested for being in a bar at a place where LGBT people were welcome. So mere presence. I guess it was mere presence that this guy was arrested. So we've got a low burden of proof, or a low bar to arrest people. We've got mere presence, and we've got a prison in Cameroon where a person is openly having a seizure in the courtyard and nobody gives a shit. Does any of this sound familiar? Does it? Hang on a second. I'm just reading through what you say. Yeah, I'm not going to, there's no fucking way I'm posting any, I'm not watching it. People have been, yeah, people have been extremely quick to forget the video lockdowns. People are going insane, and they're in their own homes, could turn the lights off, sleep, whatever, not fighting rats for food, etc. And see, people, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm with you, right? So, and that, I think that it's one thing when Murder Sheet spouts a bunch of bullshit and nonsense. It's another thing when a licensed clinical psychologist who, frankly, when I watched some of the videos way back, from, I went back to when they covered the Lori Vallow trial. And I swear to God that there wasn't an episode where this guy wasn't quoting Oedipus. I mean, he's obsessed with Oedipus. All right. And I think that honestly, it's spilling over. I don't know. I guess I would have to ask, and I've actually spoken to my clinical psychologist friend, who also is the mother of a murdered daughter. And just talking with her about some of the issues with professionals on YouTube talking about psychology from afar, it is, again, ethically dubious. And it's it perpetuates a misinformation. It perpetuates misinformation because it's not about journalism. It's not about getting the story right. It's about making content. And I think that that's one of the things that I hope talking about my experience as a journalist, just you're getting the full Andy this morning. It's like I'm just sort of waking up. But you know, when I sit back and I look at the way people are gleefully talking about torture. I mean, I've said it again and I'll say it again. And I know that Richard Allen's team likes to point to the UN conventions, etc., or the UN standards of what torture is. But I mean, this is going back to Geneva Conventions, right? This is going way back. So, you know, let's see here. What else did I want to point out? I mean, basically what it is I wanted to just sort of point out that, you know, these things matter. The way that, when was this? Oh, it was 2014. I thought it was 2012. I went, whatever. Yeah, so there's the prison right there. So there's the whole idea that, well, I'll share this. So, you know, the International Red Cross and Red Crescent was formed to keep track of, you know, international crimes, and it's counterintuitive that there's actual rules to war, right? Y'all are up early. Hey, y'all. Yeah, I am, because I got to get this off my chest. There's rules. There's rules, and the thing is that there's almost like a gleeful comfort that some people are taking in they're finally being a they no longer have to say alleged, right? They no longer have to keep up any pretense of being objective. Now, it's like I say every time when I do a journalism, you'll know, right? So this is my opinion, but when an interview is done or when a story is put together and there's the conflation of, it's just a shitstorm what's going on with the ongoing state narrative about what is and is not the legal system. I mean, if they think, again, I maintain, drop those two, for example, into the Cameroonian prison, right? Drop those two into this space and see what I saw, what my fellow travelers saw, what people in sub-Saharan Africa around the world have to deal with being held. I think I read in here, being held without trial for a year. And this person was held with no charges, right? In this prison. And I'm pointing this out, not because I think that Cameroon is a train wreck. I'm pointing it out because people need to understand that the United States and the carceral system is a fucking mess. And again, it disproportionately impacts people of color. And there's a class divide. But to be able to diagnose somebody from afar, predicated on an obsession with by a doctor, an obsession with Oedipus. Ew. I mean, it's like nothing but Freud all the time. I find it disturbing. So there's rules that govern international law. There's this is, I know that law gets a really bad rap, but there are certain international treaties by which we are bound. Setting aside the potential civil suit against the DOC and all of the other civil suits in Indiana against the DOC, right? It's the narrative. It's the perpetuation of this narrative that, well, all of that torture that Richard Allen, or insert any other pretrial detainee or any other human, is okay because he was found guilty of murdering 2 kids. But the thing is that belies what's actually going on or what actually happened in this trial. And that's where an actual journalist, or bringing on a legal professional who, can speak to those things, would have provided a much better, education, right? But that's not what we're here for. That's not what they are there for. And I called out the Lauren from Hidden True Crime back when she was at the trial, and she was posting private messages between her and the defense team on Twitter. That's not journalism. It's just not. It's clickbait. It's bullshit. It's desperation. And it's disgusting to me.